What's up, everybody? This is the Helpful Hacker here. Today we're going to be going over the DNS in detail room from TryHackMe. So we'll get started with task number 1. What is DNS? So DNS, simply put, is what allows us to, instead of typing in IP addresses, we can type in domain names. And DNS stands for the Domain Name System. Because human beings, we just don't memorize things. Like if anytime you wanted to go to facebook.com, you had to memorize a long IP address, that would be a huge pain. And so because of that, we've created the domain name system, and this allows us to type in google.com or tryhackme.com instead of a full IP address for all of those things. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what the DNS does. That's why we have it. And you can read the little blurb up top about it, come down here, answer the question. What does DNS stand for? It stands for the Domain Name System. You can click that, and with that, you're done with task 1. Now we're on to task 2, the domain hierarchy. So you have different, you can think of them as levels of a domain. You have the root domain, which we're not going to worry too much about here. It's not super important to complete this room, and just for your initial understanding of DNS, it's not vital. But we will talk quite a bit about top-level domains, and you'll see how those work, and second-level domains, which are the actual domain names that you think of. So as an example, if I used facebook.com, Facebook would be the second-level domain, and then the .com would be the top-level domain. Or let's say nasa.gov, NASA would be my second-level domain, .gov would be my top-level domain. So you can read all about that. You can read about the different limits, because there are limits, and I think we'll get into those with the questions here. So yeah, you can read through that and then start answering the questions. What is the maximum length of a subdomain? The second level domain a subdomain is limited to 63 characters and can only use A to Z, 0 through 9, and hyphens. So the answer to that one would be 63. Which of the following characters cannot be used in a subdomain? So we talked about it right here. It can use that. So it can use 3B and a hyphen, but it can't use that. So that would be our answer. And then what is the maximum length of a domain name? So 253 right here. We can read about that. But the length must be kept to 253 characters or less, right? So you can use multiple subdomains split with periods to create longer names, but the length in all must be kept to 253 characters or less. So 253, that's our answer. What type of TLD is .co.uk? So if we look, we have TLD, GTLDs, and CCTLDs. So what that stands for is country code, right? So that's basically what that means. That's why the example they're giving us is a .co.uk. If you've ever been on a site for the UK or in the UK, then you've probably seen this quite a bit, and that's just a country code. So CC, capital TLD would be the answer, and you can read more about that right here, and this will talk about top-level domains. Here we go. Country code, top-level domains, so CC, TLD. And it talks about the different kinds, how we need new ones. And if you want to, you can even look at a bunch of them and get the full list. But there's a ton. The most common ones that you see are up here. And then you'll also see country code ones like .UK or .Australia or, whatever country you might be in. So yeah, go through that, answer those questions, and then you're done with task 2. And then it's on to task 3, record types. So DNS, as it says up here, isn't just for websites, and multiple types of DNS records exist. So we're only going to talk about some of the most common ones, right? So here it says it's not just for websites, but that is its main purpose. DNS is mainly for websites, but you'll see here in a sec. So the A record, this resolves your IPv4 address, right, to a domain name. So that's what that record does. And then this quadruple A record is going to do the same thing, but for IPv6. Now the CNAME record, what this does is this resolves to another domain name. So it gives you the example, TryHackMe has an online shop, and the subdomain name for it is store.tryhackme.com, right? So if I go to TryHackMe and if I try to go to their store, this is the domain that TryHackMe would give me. They say, hey, you go buy merch at our store.tryhackme.com. And then that's going to return a CNAME record of shops.shopify.com. And then that would just get your regular DNS request to figure out what the IP address for that is, right? So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. CNAME records are commonly used when it's like for multiple sites or multiple domain names pointing to the same actual IP address. So, and it's used for stuff like this, like the store.tryhackme.com, as in this example. So read through that. It's not crazy critical that you understand these in insane depth at this point. You'll get a lot more exposure to all types of these records, and we're going to learn, if you keep going through TryHackMe, you'll learn about tools that can give you these records for any website that you're looking at. And so you'll get way more into it, but that's a good intro for CNAME records. Next is MX records. So this has to do with email. And so this handles the email for the domain you're querying. So for example, with tryhackme.com, their MX record looks something like that. And so I'll give you an example because they don't really give you one. So if I'm trying to email, like, I don't know, let's say there's a guy that works at TryHackMe and his name is Dave at tryhackme.com, right? TryHackMe.com, maybe they have, or in this case, I mean, it looks like they don't, but maybe they have their own email server, right? And so if I'm trying to email somebody at tryhackme.com, then I need a record that's going to show me where to point that to, right? Like, where am I supposed to go, or where is Google going to send my email if it's at tryhackme.com? And so MX records involve that. When you think of an MX record, I want you to think of like email, and it's what helps make sure emails get to where they're going, essentially, or where they should be going. So think of at Google, at Microsoft.com, at TryHackMe.com, whatever company you work for. I'm sure you have an at, and then the name of your company. So that's what an MX record can tell you. And that's very useful for stuff you'll probably do in the future. And then TXT records, these are just text fields. You can really put whatever you want in them, but there are some standard things that people use them for, and a lot of people use them to verify ownership of a domain or to verify email, to make sure it can help prevent like spam and stuff like that. So text records can be a lot of things. But just think of it as a free text field, like it says right here, so you can kind of put in whatever you want. So yeah, you can read through all those, answer the questions. What type of record would be used to advise where to send email? MX record. What type of record handles IPv6 addresses? And that would be the quadruple A record. So submit those, and then you're done with task number 3. Next is task number 4, where it's going to kind of walk us through making an actual DNS request. So in this example, let's just for sake of example, say you're trying to get to HackMe or TryHackMe.com. So you request that domain name, and what your computer is going to do, it's going to first check the local cache on the computer to see if you've looked up the address recently. So your computer actually keeps a cache of recent IP to domain names, like stuff that you've searched. So if you've gone to Facebook, Google, Instagram, the stuff that you visit every day, chances are those are going to be in your computer's cache because you just went to it yesterday. But let's say, for argument's sake, that you look up tryhackme.com and you haven't been there ever, so it's your first time, so it's not going to be cached on your computer. The next thing that'll happen is if it can't find it on your computer, it's going to send you to a recursive DNS server. And this is usually provided by your internet service provider. And this is a server that's going to keep more of those connections from DNS to, or from domain name to IP addresses. And they're going to keep like cache of that, but it's going to be much bigger. And so they're going to hold like all the common stuff that people look for. They're going to have it more often than not inside the recursive DNS server. So right here, Google, Facebook, Twitter. So they usually do a good job for the most part. Joe Schmo is watching Netflix or whatever. If it's not already, on their computer's cache, it'll most likely be in the recursive DNS server cache. But let's say that your internet service provider doesn't have tryhackme.com already in their recursive DNS server. So then what it's going to do is it's going to go to the root server. And this is the backbone of like DNS. It's super important. And what the root server is going to do is it's going to look at the top level domain. And if you remember, the top level domain is like .com, .gov, .org. So it's going to look at tryhackme.com and it's going to see the .com. And then what it's going to do is it's going to send it to a top level domain server that holds the records for where to find the authoritative DNS server. So there's multiple top level domain servers for .com. And so first, like I said, root server in step 3 is going to see that .com and it's going to send it to one of these top level domain servers. And then that top level domain server is going to be able to point in the direction of the authoritative DNS server. And so the tryhackme.com. So these are the authoritative DNS servers for tryhackme.com, and you'll find multiple name servers for the domain name, and that's as a backup usually in case something were to happen to the first. So then it's going to go to this authoritative DNS server, and this is the server that's actually responsible for holding the DNS records for that domain. And what it's going to do is it is finally, once it's reached here, it is going to reach straight out to your computer and give you that information so you can go to tryhackme.com by typing in tryhackme.com and not having to type the IP address directly into your URL. So that's how it works. You can kind of see the flow right here. This is a good thing to know. You're not going to use it a ton right off the bat going through TryHackMe, but you will use it more and more, especially as you get deeper into cybersecurity and TryHackMe and all that. So go through, read that, and then the questions at the bottom. What field specifies how long a DNS record should be cached for? TTL. You'll see TTL in a lot of different places. What it stands for is time to live. And that just means how long should something be held on to. So we've talked about this when we've talked about packets. So if you're sending something across the internet, it gets broken down into a packet. And if that packet takes too long to get to the destination, it just literally dies. And that's why it's called the time to live, and it's forgotten. So what type of DNS server is usually provided by your internet service provider? That would be back up to step 2, a recursive DNS server. And then what type of server holds all the records for a domain? The authoritative DNS server. So this is the server that actually holds everything. And so answer those, and then you're done with task 4. Then task 5, use the website on the right. You can build requests to make DNS queries and view the results. So let's do that. What is the CNAME? So what is the CNAME of shop.website? And if you look here, you only have to type in shop because it already has .website.thm in there for you. So that if we send the request, non-authoritative answer, shop.website, canonical name, shops.myshopify.com, right? So we talked about CNAME records, kind of how that works and how you might type this in, but it's actually going to send you to this shops.shopify.com. That's the IP address that's what you're actually looking for. So then the next step is, what is the value of the txt record for the website.thm? So we're just going to type in the txt record. It already has website.thm in there. So if we send that request, we can see this text string. So you can copy that, paste it in there. And like we talked about, txt records, they're just an empty text field. They're used for a lot of cool stuff, but you can put anything in there, just like they have this value in there. So copy that, paste it in there, submit the answer. Then what is the numerical priority value for the MX record? So we'll look at the MX record, and we can see that it's 30 right here. So what that basically is this is just the priority of the which mail server to use. A lot of websites will have multiple mail servers, and there's some that take priority over others, and that is shown in just a numerical value. So the lower the value, the more of a priority it takes. So if they showed you, and it'd be nice if they did, if they showed you like another another mail server, but it had a priority value of like 10, then that would be priority number 1. And then this would be the next priority because this is a higher number. So it prioritizes those lower numbers. And then this last question, what is the IP address for the A record of website.thm? So we'll just type A record, and it's 10.10.10.10, right? So plug that in. That's your answer. Once you've answered that, you've completed task number 5. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, subscribe. It helps me out a lot. And once you've done all that, completed all the tasks, you are finished with the DNS in detail room from TryHackMe.